the brokenness that we experience that brings us to Jesus is like holy ground. Like I think of the woman at the well, or I think of even the woman with the blood disorder when she was desperate enough to reach for the hem of his garment. Like you have to be really desperate to do something. Like she could have been in prison for that. She could have been stoned to death for that. And so I think when we come to this place where the only thing else there is to do is to reach out for Jesus, that's when we're ready to do what we have to do to surrender.
Well, welcome back to the Finding Something Real podcast, friend. This is your host, Janelle Wood, and I'm so grateful that you're here today. We've got a really great episode for you. I can't wait. I am joined today by 4 beautiful co-hosts that I just adore. Each one of them so special. We've got Anna and Cailee and Sarah and Frankie all here. Welcome back to the Finding Something Real podcast, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
I want to check in with each of you real briefly here. Sarah, you've been here many times. I'm so grateful that you're here again. How are you doing? What's going on in your life right now? I know 30 seconds or less isn't great, but that's what you got.
No, I am doing very well. I'm enjoying the spring here on Whidbey. And just feel really thankful for a lot in my life. I've gotten to share my testimony a couple of times in the last month. That's been really amazing. And I am in the start of a new relationship that has been really exciting. So, yeah.
And may I ask, since it's come up on an episode before, I think with Megan and Trip Allman, is this the same relationship that we were talking about back then?
It is, yeah. God's timing is better than mine. And I'm thankful for what he's doing with it.
I'm really excited for you. And also I had the opportunity to, you shared some of your testimony with me, and so powerful, so proud of you. I know you're an introvert, and to see you doing that, it just almost brought tears to my eyes, Sarah. So pretty amazing watching the journey that you've been on. So thank you for being here again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And then we've got Anna and Cailee. Welcome back to the podcast, ladies. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Tell me, same drill, 30 seconds or less, something that's been going on in your life. Any changes since the last time you've been on?
Yeah, sure. Not many changes. Just working. I work at a boutique downtown, so that's fun. Just doing good. Trying to figure things out, but yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
How about you, Anna?
I just had a busy weekend with Valley Collective. I don't know if I've talked about it in here, but they're worship nights that we do quarterly here in Chelan, and we just had our 1-year anniversary this last Saturday. So just really, really grateful, but really tired too.
Well, I love both of you. I got to spend time with each of you yesterday. We had pizza and talked about the upcoming events in June. The outreach event at the Ruby on June 18th, and the fundraiser coming up on June 19th at the Garden. I'm losing my words here. Raina, cut this out. Shadow Mountain Events Center. We're really grateful for that coming up. And I just really appreciate both of you and your encouragement and the things that you are doing for the Lord. It's just really exciting to see both of you using your gifts. And then Frankie, what's been going on with you?
I am at Bible right now, just in the midst of finals. So lots of studying and also trying to move back out, since it's the end of the year and everything. So yeah, just lots of studying and lots of tests and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And okay. So, if it's okay, is it okay if I announce that you are coming here this summer to work with
Yes.
Finding Something Real on a fellowship, and we're going to be doing some ministry together. And since the last time we talked back on the podcast, you've changed your major. Is that right?
I did. Yes. I was originally a psych major, and then I ended up switching to Bible. So I'm majoring in Christian ministries now.
I love it. We're so
Yes.
excited to have you here in the Valley this summer and to be part of some ministry things here. And I just love all of you. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful for today's guest. She's a friend of mine. She's a speaker. She's an author, a ministry leader, but more importantly, she's my friend. And I met Shelli Strickland about a year and a half ago, I think it was. Shelli, is that right?
Yes, at Beach Retreat, the first beach retreat.
At the first beach retreat with Mary Snyder. If you're not familiar with Mary Snyder, she's done a lot of great work for speakers, Christian speakers especially. And we got connected. Loved you then. And then last summer at the Christian Communicators Conference, we sat down. We were both there in Texas. That's where I met Raina. But you and I think we had a breakfast together and you shared your story. And I just remember how powerful it was walking away from that, thinking that you really understand just the pain of rejection and also the love of the Father in our identity and what that means. And just have so appreciated you. And then we got to spend time again in March of this year, just a little while ago. And we had some really cool things that happened while we were there. I would love for you to share a little bit of that. And then, I mean, you can share anything you want, friend. But yeah, I'm just so grateful you're here. So.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. I have loved you since the minute I saw you. You have the Holy Spirit so evident in you and on you, and it's just beautiful. I just love your spirit so much. You're just a precious, precious soul.
Well, we're here to talk about the things that God's doing in your life. Thank you. Okay, so I know I alluded to it, but we do. I just want to hear it from your perspective. We went to a tattoo parlor.
We did.
And we met some people there.
We did.
We became friends with some people there.
We did. Because of you, and you are just an incredible, you just see people beyond, it's just impressive. It's just beautiful the way you can just see right through.
Shelli, stop. You're here to talk
I can't help it.
But I just wanted to talk about this because it was so cool. Oh my gosh. We got to go. We had a friend with us. We had Rachel with us.
Yes.
And we were on a mission because we felt compelled to love on them. Yeah. And so we went back to the tattoo parlor and we brought Bibles and crumble cookie gift cards and crumble cookies and a gift card for a restaurant. It was a whole
thing. And coffee. It was the best. The girls were super shocked. They were super shocked. Well, because Janelle was like, am I echoing?
No, you're good.
Okay. So she asked them. So a lot of the women that were getting tattoos, the first time we saw them, we were like, oh, we're here for a Christian conference or whatever. And Janelle was like, do Christians come in here and get tattoos often? And they're like, oh, yeah, all the time. And she was like, well, are they sweet? And they were like, no. And so right then we were like, okay, we have to fix this. They can't think that, Christians are just not kind. And so, yeah, exactly. So we went back. Well, there were some other reasons. It wasn't just that. They needed the love of Jesus. They needed to feel seen. And so we did. We went back and we brought all the things that Janelle just mentioned. And we got to just pray with them and pray over them. They were sobbing. We were sobbing. We were group hugging. It was just... Oh, it was amazing. It was so amazing. And I still keep in touch. Do you still keep in touch with Alyssa?
No, but I have her picture, that picture on my wall, on the prayer wall at the upper room. And I think and pray for her and those girls all the time. And sometimes I give out that picture to people and say, would you just pray? And I write their names like on the back because I remember their names.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. Who do you keep in touch with? Tiffany?
Tiffany. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tiffany. Yeah. She was the one that just, I think because she was a mom of 2 young girls. And she was the one that was the most broken when we were praying. Just, you could feel the tenderness in her heart. And yeah, she had my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those moments where you're just...
It was awesome.
It was so cool. It was so cool. Anyway, a high from a mission trip is what it was.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All right, Shelli, tell us more about you. I'd love to hear more of your ministry, what you're doing, and then we can talk a little bit about your faith background.
Okay, this is so fun. So, first of all, I love seeing all of y'all on here from Washington State, right? Everyone here is from Washington State. Yes. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in Vancouver, Washington, if any of y'all are familiar. I went to Chelan with a good friend of mine. I think I was in the eighth grade. So I'm familiar-ish with Chelan and Whidbey Island. I have a friend who has a cabin out there, so I kind of know everyone's pinpoint right now. But so my ministry is mainly about restoration, about redemption, about God's just healing ability to reach down and grab somebody out of the pit and put their life back together when they surrender. And so it's just, I'm so thankful for the Lord and how He goes after the lost sheep, because I was a very lost sheep for a really long time.
Okay, where can people find more information about you before I start digging in? What's your website?
Okay, my website is gracedformore.org. Um, I named it that because in Philippians 1:6, it says, "He who began a good work in you will not stop until the day of completion." And part of my story is that I got sober 16 years ago. And so I remember when I went into recovery thinking, this is all there is. Like, I'll just get sober and that'll be what I want. Like, I'll be able to function and do all these things. But God was like, "Oh no, this is just the beginning." There's so much more for you to do. And so I named my website Graced for More, because He gives more grace and allows us to partner with Him and to do more for the kingdom. And it's just such a huge blessing.
So tell us more of your story. I'd love to hear as much as you're willing to share.
Okay. Well, my parents were divorced when I was 6. I was raised in Washington State. And when my parents divorced, my mom was left with 3 small kids. And she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia from before I was born. So she's been struggling with mental illness in and out of mental institutions really my whole life. And she would never take medication for it. And that was back, I mean, this is in the 70s. So people didn't talk about mental health the way they talk about it now. And resources were not anywhere near as available. And so there was a lot of shame and a lot of stigma. And it got to the point where she wasn't able to hold down a job or to, she would just go in and out. So we'd have family members come and stay with us. And then while she was a little bit stable, it was my little brother and I, and then she had been married before my dad. So I had an older half brother who was also mentally ill. And he was, I explain it this way. He's the type of person you wouldn't want to leave a little girl with by herself. And so between him and my mom and just the dysfunction in our house, it was just like growing up walking on landmines, like just trying to figure out how to be as quiet as possible and attract as little of attention as possible. And so we didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up in the church. My parents weren't Christian. I've never heard my parents pray. I've never, ever seen either one of them read a Bible. And so I didn't know. I didn't know that, I could turn to God and ask for help or ask for hope. I just lived in this despair and this dysfunction. And looking back, a lot of my way out of that was, it started in people pleasing. It started in, approval, being at school and wanting just to be the good person and the good girl and trying to just stay away from home as much as I possibly could. And as that went on, eventually when I was 15, my mom ended up having a major breakdown, and I came home from a basketball game one night, and our house was completely empty, and she was just sitting on the living room floor, Indian style, crying. And it was that moment where you're like, I want to help her so bad, but I don't know what to do. And I have to remind myself, I couldn't even drive yet. But when you're a child and you see your mom just breaking down and falling apart, somehow you just feel kind of responsible. I don't know how to explain it. And so I remember calling my dad that night and just telling him, Mom, this is going on. I don't know what to do. Mom's leaving. She says she's leaving and moving to Colorado, which, as you know, is a few states away. And I said, can I move in with you? I just knew in my heart, I knew I couldn't go with her. And so she put a bunch of clothes in a garbage bag, her and my older half brother, and they drove away. And it was the last time I saw her or heard from her for 10 years. And my dad came and got me and my little brother. And so if you're familiar with Portland, Oregon, it's right on the other side of the Green Bridge. And there's an area called Jansen Beach, and there's houseboats down there. So my dad was living on the houseboats. So we moved into my dad's houseboat. It was a one-bedroom. They slept on cots in the living room, and he gave me his bedroom. And I laugh all the time about this because it was so tiny, but it was safe. It was safe. And I just remember me and my little brother, eventually I got my driver's license, and I would drive us across that green bridge every morning to school. And the problem is that we just never talked about it. I never told anybody about that. I just shoved it all down like a pressure cooker and just started learning how to hide things that I was ashamed of and not wanting people to know about it from shame. And eventually I turned to food for like coping and just not knowing how to deal with it. My dad, bless his heart, he just didn't know how to talk about it. It was in that generation where like you just don't talk about it. And so I never asked about my mom. I didn't know where she was. And I just started using food as a way to like numb all that out. And eventually it led me to alcohol. And I started drinking from like my senior year in high school, all the way through college. And it just escalates. So eventually like sin begets sin begets sin, but I didn't know that word yet. So it really was just numbing begets numbing begets numbing until you kind of get to a place where you come to the end of yourself. And I reached that in a really ugly way, in a really beautiful way though, because a lot of times I was just writing about this recently. Y'all, I wasn't going to cry.
I'm already crying, Shelly. You're not the only one. I don't feel sorry for you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the brokenness that we experience that brings us to Jesus is like holy ground. Like I think of the woman at the well, or I think of even the woman with the blood disorder when she was desperate enough to reach for the hem of his garment. Like you have to be really desperate to do something. Like she could have been in prison for that. She could have been stoned to death for that. And so I think when we come to this place where the only thing else there is to do is to reach out for Jesus, that's when we're ready to do what we have to do to surrender. And I reached to that point where there was not enough food, there was not enough alcohol to numb what I was trying to escape from. And so I'm so grateful for that gift. I call it the gift of desperation that brought me to my knees on my kitchen floor one day. And yeah, Jesus met me there. And I'm eternally grateful for that because, I mean, I wouldn't be here without it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. I didn't mean to make a joke about it, but I kind of did. It was so heavy.
You're good. Oh my goodness.
I just love you.
I love you too.
What difference has Jesus made from that girl who broke down on the kitchen floor to who is talking right now?
I love that question. Really everything. Surrendering to the Lord has been life-changing, as you can imagine. But I say this a lot, like reaching out and asking for help takes a lot of courage and a lot of hope. But I wasn't just healed all at once. Like I was healed, but I also had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of work to do. I had to go to counseling. I had to go to recovery meetings. I had to figure out how to live without all the things that I had been using to numb out everything I didn't want to feel. And I talk about the man on the mat a lot in John chapter 5 because Jesus comes to him and he asks him a question. And he asks all of us the same question. Do you want to be made well? Do you want to be healed? And we have to decide that for ourselves. And a lot of healing can happen immediately, but a lot of times there's a lot of steps involved in terms of like restoration is a process, redemption is a one-time thing. Like God bought me with the blood of Christ, but I needed to learn how to live a holy life, a righteous life, everything the Bible says as a believer. But I mean, I would take 3 steps forward and 5 steps back. I never relapsed, but I would, all those behaviors that go underneath the alcohol and the food, if that makes sense. So it took a while. It took a while for me to learn how to live the way that the Lord died for us to live.
What what does that look like now for you?
So for me right now, what that looks like is I wake up hungry. Janelle, stop. I wake up hungry for him every day. And, I will go to him before I go to anything else, before I go to the world, before I go to my phone, before I go to any other relationship. It's him that I want to be in a relationship with more than anything else. And I think for me, having him first, which is of course what he wants us to do, like have no other gods before me. A lot of times we can look at, the Old Testament and be like, okay, well, we don't serve other gods. We only serve the Lord. But really in the world today, it can be success. It can be likes. It can be achievement. It can be so many worldly things that are just as big of a distraction. But we don't call them little g gods. We call them habits, or we call them, sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give these ladies an opportunity to respond here. If no one volunteers, Sarah, it's you. So maybe you should just unmute yourself now.
I'm ready. Thank you so much, Shelli, just for your vulnerability in sharing your story. I relate to a lot of what you said, and I really like that you use the words holy ground to describe the time of desperation that you experienced. I'm curious to hear more of what it was like for you in that moment of turning to the Lord. Where did you even know that you could turn to Jesus if you didn't grow up with that kind of background? And what gave you the confidence that he could meet you in that?
I love that question so much. So, one thing that I skipped was I had a friend when I was 8 years old whose dad was a pastor, and she invited me to church with her one day. And I remember going, I remember what I was wearing. I can remember everything about that moment and hearing about God, hearing about Jesus, and about this God who loved us and sent his son to die for us. And something happened to me that day. I know that seeds were planted. I really think that I was saved that day. I don't know. I remember crying. I remember feeling something. But it was hard because I went home and I never went back again with her. She never invited me again. And I talk about this so much, like how important it is to invite people to church, because it's life changing, especially for people who aren't exposed to it. And I remember having hope then and just really wanting to tell my mom about God, but not knowing how, not understanding enough to explain it. And also, her mental illness made it really hard for her to differentiate between reality and not reality. And then, of course, God, he is a pursuing God. He pursues us. And he would put Christians in my life sporadically. And so when I went to college, I went to school in Texas because I wanted to get as far away from Washington State as I possibly could. And so I was in the Bible Belt. And I think it's so funny how God does that because he's awesome in that way. And so I joined a sorority when I was there, and I had all these little Christian girlfriends around me. But and as wonderful as they were also drinking. They were doing the things that I was doing. So I couldn't differentiate between the world and church and God. And it was really cloudy for me. But seeds were planted. Seeds were being planted. And then when I met my husband, I met him through some mutual friends. And he grew up completely opposite from me. And so he grew up in this small little southern town in Alabama. His mom has played the piano in their church for like 35 years. I mean, it's like Little House on the Prairie, literally, literally. And so, I mean, when I met him, it was like everything I ever wanted and completely opposite from the way I grew up. And when we got married, we got married. So we dated 4 months and then we got married. And he was a Christian. And so I know that God did that on purpose. I know that that was God working in my life. And when we got married, we had kids right away. And so we were going to church, but I was still 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I recently heard, who was it? I'll remember in a minute. But they said it this way, and it was so perfect. I was saved when I was little, I think, but I was redeemed when I was in my 30s because that's when I fully surrendered to the Lord. And we would go to church and bring our little babies there and drop them off in the nursery, but I would be drinking on Saturday nights. And so I was hearing the gospel. I was hearing the way I wanted to live, the way I was trying so hard. I would try to quit drinking on my own, and then I couldn't. And so I knew that the Lord would heal me the second I surrendered.
Oh, I relate a lot to that, just in the like blindness, even while you're surrounded by the truth, it's still so easy to not understand and sad.
Yeah. I love that, what you just said, because so many times in scripture, when Jesus heals the blind man, we think about that physical healing and how awesome that is. But really, he was doing so much more than the physical healing. He was removing scales from his eyes so he could see spiritually. Yeah.
Frankie.
I just wanted to ask, just a little bit based off what you just were describing about being like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and like, just was there anything that like really took you from being like 1 foot out to being like all in? And like, do you
Yes.
remember like,
Yes.
yeah, what that was?
I can tell you exactly what it was. That's a great question.
Okay.
So, a lot of my life I lived in secret. And so what was going on at my house, I would get to school and pretend that everything was fine. And so I learned how to wear a mask. I learned how to, I don't know, live that double life like really early on. And so when I would go to church, I could do that. But I could also go home and drink. And so what did it for me was the very first time I went to a Bible study. So it wasn't going to be me sitting in a pew listening to a pastor. Somebody from the gym invited me to go to this Bible study. And I remember her saying, "It's really fun. The people are really normal." And I was like, okay, well, then I guess I'll go. I still had this perception that like I didn't belong in church. I was only able to go because David was with me. I still felt like I didn't belong, like I was an outsider. I wasn't raised up this way, so I don't know, I just believed the lie that it wasn't really for me. I just got to come because David was there. I think that's the first time I've ever said that out loud. But it's true. And so this girl from the gym invited me to go to church or to go to Bible study. And I was like, okay. But I remember walking in that morning and she didn't show up. And I literally was like, I'm going to turn around. Like, I can't go by myself. I've never gone by myself. And something in me, obviously, I'm sure it was the Lord, got me on that elevator. And I got off on the second floor and I walked into this room with a sea full of women, church women. And I felt so intimidated. I felt like such an outsider, like I didn't belong. I was sweating. I wanted to run away. And this woman like just saw me in the sea of all these people. And she came up to me and she just gave me this hug that I will never forget. And she just said, "I'm so glad you're here," and welcomed me and just embraced me. And I could just feel, I felt welcomed for the first time. I felt like I belonged there. And she invited me to sit at her table. And I sat down with these ladies and I was like, part of me wanted to run away, but part of me wanted to stay. And the second they started the video, I'll never forget, it was a Beth Moore video back in the day. And she said, the very first thing she said was, "If you're here today and you just drank last night, you're in the right place." I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, oh my goodness. I like looked around like she was talking to me. And it was the first time I felt like, okay, maybe I can do this. Like maybe this is for me. And I felt seen. I felt seen by that woman, and I felt like I had permission to be there even though I knew what I was doing was wrong. And that was the moment. That was when.
Cailee and Anna.
I was just gonna ask how you would say your identity in Christ was like before you fully surrendered and then after. Like, what did that look like, the shift?
Okay, I'll probably cry. Um, Before I surrendered to the Lord, my identity was definitely, "you don't matter." I carried that for a really long time, mainly because of my mom. And that was a deep wound. I mean, even Janelle, like we were talking in Dallas, I mean, that still to this day is probably the deepest wound, more than anything. And so for the longest time, "you don't matter" was what was always running in my mind. Even trying to go to that first Bible study, I thought, I don't belong here, because that was part of it. And after walking with the Lord, and this took a long time. I mean, this is part of what I was talking about the onion layer and the restoration process. It took me a long time to really believe, even though I knew that I was surrendered and I was healing, it took me a long time to really believe that I was a daughter. It took me a long time. I don't know if that answered your question.
Can I,
Very.
before Cailee, I'm sure you've got a question too, but I'd love to ask you, as somebody who has similar life, right? We talked about that. What do you do when that lie comes up again? It comes up again, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's always trying to come up again. I think the biggest thing that I do is I go to scripture instead of going to the world, instead of going to my news feed, instead of going to anything other than God's word. And I have to read things that remind me. I think that's why I love the woman with the blood disorder so much, because on the outside, if you just read that story, I can think, I don't relate to that. I haven't been bleeding for 12 years, but it's so much deeper than that. Like, her identity was her issue. And I think we all can relate to having an issue. I know I had a lot. I still can. So it's really the heart of the matter is the issue of being an outsider, unclean, and not feeling like we belong, not being enough. And when Jesus turns to heal her, the first thing he does is call her daughter. And he redeems her identity in that moment. And we talk about the physical healing of that moment, but really it was her identity was restored. And I just have to remember he sees us as his daughters.
Good word. Cailee.
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. And I actually had a question similar to yours, but instead I'll ask.
Sorry, Cailee, I stole your question.
Was there a time that you felt like a specific time that you felt that there was a belonging there, that you felt like you belonged in everything? Or has it always just kind of been like you still feel a little disconnected, but you have to just keep going because our thoughts?
Yeah, I love that question so much. It took me a while. It took me a while to feel like a true belonging. And I think what did it for me, what helped me the most was sharing my testimony. Like the farther along I got in my sobriety, the more I started connecting with other women in the church. And the more I did that, the more that veil came down, that barrier came down of me feeling apart from and really feeling like they loved me because it was all me. It was all me projecting all of my issues. It was never them. And so I talk about it. I wrote a book called The Gift of Willingness. And in that book, I describe it as there was this one woman in particular who was really discipling me. And I mean, she just met me. She met me all the time at a coffee shop. And she just poured into me in a way that I had never been poured into from another woman. And I don't know, that changed my life. I mean, her just really going out of her way to love me and to teach me and to disciple me was when, then I started serving in the church, and then I mean, once you start serving in the church, it's over. I don't mean it like that. It's like you start serving in one area and then you're going to serve somewhere else and then you're going to serve somewhere else. And pretty soon I was living at the church, and I can remember so clearly. I know that God doesn't speak audibly, but there is one moment where when they asked me to lead my first Bible study, I can remember walking down the hallway. I was by myself, and I remember just crying and being like, why me, God? Like, I didn't grow up in the church. And he said, you may not have grown up in the church, but I grew you up in this church. And he just reframed everything for me.
Well, maybe, do you think he spoke audibly then? Because I know some people do hear from him audibly. So I wonder,
I really, honestly, I mean, it was so, in my mind, yes.
Yeah, you heard him. Wow. Okay. Anybody have any pressing questions right now? Because I could ask some more, but I want to give you guys a chance. Sarah, you got something there.
I have one question. I'm thinking about now, and it sounds like as part of your story, you decided to invest in being a discipler of women. Mm-hmm. And I feel convicted that I need to press into that in my life right now. But I have always felt like the disciplee, and I don't know that I like have much to give. And I wonder what that was like for you, stepping into a role of coming alongside other women and having the confidence to do that.
I love that so much. I don't think it's a confidence thing. I think it's a relational thing. As long as we are just doing life with somebody else, I think you're discipling even when you don't even realize it. I think just going to coffee with somebody or going to lunch and just praying with them and talking about what God is doing in your life and just walking with them through the things that are difficult and just praying into that is discipling. And I think we can use this big word and make it something more than just relational. And I think if the Lord is putting it on your heart, then he's going to equip you to do it.
He already is, isn't he, Sarah?
Yeah. I bet you are. Yeah.
She's already given her testimony at
Oh,
places,
see right there.
loving on people. She's got the gift
Yes.
of evangelism. Yeah.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. He will use you in mighty ways. And sometimes we think it has to be big, and sometimes it's just really quiet and small. And you think about how he met the woman at the well and just talked to her one on one. And then she went back and told the community. So sometimes, we can't despise that one on one contact. For a long time, ministry for me was just one on one, meeting people one on one and listening to their stories and sharing with them my story and what God can do and what he has done and will do is discipleship. Yeah. But I'm proud of you for leaning into that because that glorifies him. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And it's an encouragement to me. That's what I've been learning to share with other people just as much as I hope to encourage them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Shelli, what would you say to maybe the young woman listening to this or watching it who has not experienced touching the hem of his garment, who has not come to that place of desperation? Jesus is, maybe somebody who's been there, but the scales haven't fallen from the eyes. Like, what would you say about who you know Jesus to be and the freedom that he gives? How would you speak to that person? I keep thinking about going to that, what was that place called? The Magic Mushroom or
Oh, yeah. The pizza place? The
Yeah,
mellow
the pizza
mushroom.
the
Yeah,
mellow
the mellow
mushroom.
mushroom. Yeah.
And we met some
Oh, yeah.
gals there, and I remember you were so touched because you said later, that was me. I saw myself in that girl. We ran into some people that were there, enjoying drinks in the middle of the day, just having a fun time. And she ran out later. And anyway, I'm curious what you would say to that girl, what you would say to her.
So I think for me, the biggest hurdle to reaching out for the hem of his garment was a false sense of control. I thought I could control my drinking. I thought I could control everything around me so that it would be okay. And it's really exhausting. It's really exhausting to try to do that. And so, what I would say to her, what I would say to the girl sitting on the bar stool on a Tuesday at noon is let go. It's just exhausting trying to put up the facade that everything is okay. And I think that's why I loved that girl so much that day, was because I could see that. I could see how tiring it is, and you want to change so bad, but you don't know the next step to take, because the next step means letting go of control. And that's the hard place to be. But when you get tired enough, I, I say it this way, you really have to come to the end of yourself before you're ready to let go and surrender. Otherwise, you're just still trying to manage everything. And and that's really living in both worlds. I mean, that's just one foot in and one foot out. And really, really for me, it took the gift of desperation, just like being exhausted. Really, it took some consequences too, like relational consequences. Like my husband and I were fighting, and our kids were still really young. And, but it was, you know, it was hurting them. It was hurting them. And I could see that. And I remember thinking, I don't want to raise my kids the way I was raised, in fear and chaos and dysfunction. And I knew that it was trending in that way. So, yeah, sometimes it takes consequences and really seeing the relational strain and just letting go of trying to fix all that. I kept trying to control that in certain ways, and I just couldn't.
I have a follow-up question, but I don't want to take all the questions. If Frankie or Cailee or Anna or Sarah have anything, this is your floor. No? So what about when you're friends with that person? What about when that's your friend and you love them? But I'm sure you have friends who've
Yeah.
been in the same shoes you walked. And maybe the scales haven't fallen. Maybe the desperation isn't there. Maybe it's just, I'm fine, everything's fine. What advice would you give for the friend, Shelli?
I love this question because before I got married, I was working at Starbucks, and how I said that, God kept putting Christians in my life. This was while I was still in college. There was this one woman there who was she was on fire for the Lord. She was amazing. She just loved Jesus with all of her heart, soul, mind, and strength. And she would tell you. And she knew the way I was living. She knew, I would come in hungover. She knew that we'd leave work and go drink. She knew I was living with somebody that I shouldn't have been living with. This is before I was married. And, you know, but she just loved me anyways. She always invited me to church, and I always had an excuse why I couldn't go, but she was always praying for me. She was always inviting me to places. And I remember thinking, why are you so nice to me? Like, I am not giving you any reason to be so nice. But she was a Christian, and she was living different, but she was in the world, but not of it. She was the perfect example of what freedom looks like, and it was desirable to me, but I just wasn't at the place yet where I was ready. But she never gave up. She always just loved me, loved me, loved me, and prayed for me, prayed for me, prayed for me. And I just will never forget that. I'll never forget that. She never judged me. She never made me feel dirty, small, unworthy, ever. She always just loved me in spite of myself. And that was powerful. She did that for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happened to her? Are you guys friends?
Oh, we're
now,
still
or-
friends. I talked to her this morning. Yeah, she came to our wedding. I love her so much. Yeah, she's awesome. She gave me my first Bible. Yep. Yeah. She gave me my first Bible.
What about your mom?
Ooh. So my mom was homeless for many, many years, and she got to a place where she was willing to accept some help. And what that looked like was, I have an aunt who lives here in Gig Harbor, here, like I'm here. She lives in Gig Harbor, and it's my mom's sister. And so she went and lived with my aunt for a while, but she would never take medicine. So she's very volatile, very mean, very, she will cuss you upside down. I mean, it's just, she's angry. And so my aunt was like, I can't do this. I mean, she has a family. So we got her a hotel room for a while, and she stayed. Used to, she would just run off, and but she ended up staying. So we kind of figured she was getting to the point where she was older, tired, And so we ended up getting her an apartment, and now she still lives in an apartment in Washington State. My aunt got to the point where it was just very draining for her. So my little brother, who actually got sober 5 years before I did, um, he takes care of her now. He takes care of her. He goes and he buys her groceries. She doesn't leave her apartment. Um, and I mean, we help financially from here, from Florida, as best, every month, pay for that. And so I think I was sharing with you, Janelle, last time I saw you, that I did go back and see her in November. I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. But I did go back and see her in November, and I do always love to try to share the gospel with her. She doesn't like to hear it at all, which is fine. But it's still hard. I mean, it's still hard. She'll never be the mom that I always wish I would have had. And I just have to accept that. But I've learned to love her for who God made her to be, even though it's not what I want, if that makes sense. That's a whole counseling session in and of itself, because that took me a long time to get there, where I could go and serve her, treat her as somebody who I didn't need anything from. And that was a long process to get to that point.
Yeah. So for somebody who maybe, Shelli, I mean, this has been a very vulnerable conversation. So I can imagine someone listening to this in their car, or maybe listening to this at night, and maybe the scales are off. Would you share the gospel like you would if with your mom, someone you love?
I love you so much, Janelle.
I love you.
Yes, I will definitely do that. I feel like for me, when I would talk to my mom, or if I was talking to somebody who was similar to what I went through, I needed to know that God loved me. I needed to know that Jesus died for me, and that I could be whole, I could be clean, I could be healthy, and I could live in a way that I didn't have to live in this chronic shame. For me, I always felt so ashamed of everything, and I wanted to hide everything that I went through. And so I went to great lengths to do that. But really, what I needed to do was just be honest. I love how in the Psalms, King David says, "When I remained silent, my bones wasted away." And I think so often we want to keep these secrets because we feel safer that way. But really, God came to just take away all those secrets and free us from all the lies that the enemy wants to tell us. And what I would tell somebody who needs to hear the truth of the gospel is that Jesus loves you unconditionally, and you don't have to clean yourself up. You can just come as you are, and he will take what is so broken and make it better than it ever was before. I love the scripture that says that he will restore the years that the locusts have taken from us. I needed to know that promise because I felt very much like so much of my childhood was stolen. And I was pretty angry about that. So I had to know that that was okay to be angry about. I had to know that that God could handle my anger about that. Because my anger wasn't like outbursts, it was inside, it was internal. And I had to be honest with the Lord about that and just ask Him to heal me. And yeah, I'm so grateful that people gave me time to do that. It didn't happen all at once.
I think it's interesting that we were going to talk about comparison, identity today, and we've done all of that without, like, it's just the abiding, right? It's giving it, surrendering it to him, walking with him every day, and choosing to listen to the truth instead of the lies. And you're a radiant example of what happens when somebody does obey the truth and listen to him, who grabs onto his garment and doesn't let go. I know he never let go of you, but it's just amazing to see the transformation he's made in your life, Shelli. I didn't know you back then, but just listening to your story, I mean, it's a powerful example of that place of rejection and a throwaway person feeling, right, to loved and accepted and daughter. It's just, if you have that, why would you care what anyone else is doing? You got that, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that so much. And I was thinking too about talking about the comparison piece that we were going to talk about. But yeah, I mean, so easily, because we talked about like wearing masks and keeping secrets and wanting other people to think that everything is fine. I lived like that for a really long time. And I think that that's what comparison can do, because that was part of the reason why I felt uncomfortable at church in the beginning, was because I was comparing my insides to other people's outsides.
Mm.
And we know that God looks at our heart, looks at the heart. Um, and I have to learn, I had to learn that. I had to learn that, all these external things, especially now with social media, and wanting to compare, really what that does is it makes us susceptible to competing, when really the Lord just says, come as you are. And there's no hierarchy. There's no, just like when the disciples were like, who's going to sit where? And Jesus just levels the playing field. He levels the playing field at the cross. And if we can just keep our eyes on the cross, we don't have to compare, because we're all on the same ground. We're all on the same ground.
I love that. I've never thought of that before, comparing our inside to someone else's outside. That will, yeah. Does that resonate too, ladies? Yeah. See a lot of nods. Yeah. We have one final question here, but before I ask it, I just would love to hear any response or final thoughts from my co-hosts here. Frankie, we'll start with you.
I just want to say, like, thank you for being so, like, open and vulnerable. Like, all of the stories and everything that you share is just, it's super cool to see, like, how God works through it, even when it's, like later in life and stuff and all of that. I just, yeah, I feel like testimony is just so powerful, and, like, listening to your testimony is just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
How about Anna?
I have a follow-up question, if that's okay. Going off the comparison, I think I don't think that's necessarily something that I've like struggled with, but I think with me specifically, and I know like this is a topic that we've talked about on the podcast, but like self-hatred or like comparing where you think you should be. I just heard something along those lines yesterday that, and it was worded so well, and I feel like I resonated with it a lot, where it wasn't necessarily comparing other people, it was comparing where you think you should be. And so I was wondering if you've ever experienced that, or how that's been maybe part of your story.
Okay, I love that question. And this might be a rabbit trail, but yes, yes. I think the enemy loves it when we do that. I think the enemy loves it. Anytime we get in there and that doubt creeps in, like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing it right, I'm not where I should be. Look at so and so, or I'm this age, so I should be farther along. Yeah, all of that wrestling is, the enemy loves that. And for me, what that looks like is, so we raised our kids in the church. I got sober when Olivia was 3 and my son was 11 months old. And we raised them going to VBS. We raised them going to, church camp and all the things every Wednesday night, every Sunday morning. And My daughter's in college now, and my son's 17. And so when I go to church now and I see these little kids getting baptized, which my kids were baptized when they were little, the enemy can start going, you know, look what you missed, look what you should have been doing. But I was doing those things, but I'll hear like, but I missed something, or I didn't do it right, or I didn't say it right, or because I know my kids now as teenagers and the things they struggle with and the things that they're coming to me with, and I think I could have prevented somehow, and that's such a lie. But I do that internal comparison with I could have been better at something or done something different to somehow control this outcome, and that will send me spinning if I let it, and I have to take my thoughts captive. And I learned this trick a long time ago. I have to Philippians 4:8 it. Whatever is true, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is noble, think about those things. I have to set my mind on Jesus or it'll go sideways quick.
For sure.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I related to a lot of what you said about just like belonging. And I've grown up in the church almost my whole life. Like I was really young when we started going to church regularly. But for some reason, I'm just always in my head. So I am always comparing myself. And I really like what you said about comparing my insides to someone's outsides. I Janelle also said like I've never heard it worded that way, and I really liked it, and I'm glad you shared that because it's a good thing to think about.
I'm glad that helped you because I think we all do that. And I think that social media is the perfect tool to use to do that. Or just being in public. Really. I mean, it's just so easy. And I think that if we're honest, I think every single person has to wrestle with that. But we have tools. We have a way out of that. Like God gives us prayer and his word and other believers. And I think too, like telling other believers that we're struggling with that is huge. Like when we hold that in, that's fuel. That's fuel for the enemy. So we have to get it out. We have to stay confessed up and as uncomfortable as it is to say, like I'm dealing with this because our secrets keep us sick, you know?
Yeah. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Shelli. I so appreciate all of your wisdom, and I'm just grateful that you are a person of light now, and all of that you're sharing, that you've turned to the freedom that Jesus offers. I heard this verse last night and was thinking about it through the conversation, so I wanted to read it. It's John 8:12. It says, "Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Thank you.
I love that, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Shelli, thank you. The Finding Something Real podcast is about finding restoration, eternity, authenticity, and love. All of those things are found in relationship with Jesus Christ, something real. Restoration, eternity, authenticity, and love of those things that Jesus offers, and he offers many more. Which stands out to you the most in your life right now, and why?
I love that question. I would say restoration. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's one of my favorite things that the Lord does. Just taking broken things and making them new. I love that he does that with a life that's surrendered to him. And yeah, I think restoration is probably one of the most beautiful things in the Christian life.
Yeah. I remember years ago, a friend telling me, people don't really change. And I remember at the time I was a teenager and I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. And now, praise the Lord, having a very different perspective. I'm like, well, Jesus changes everything.
Everything.
And it's incredible. It's incredible. And you're living proof. You're living proof, sister. I love you. I know I've told you that like 10 times on this podcast today, but it's true. And I love all of you as well. We're so thankful that you're listening to this podcast today. If you're in the Chelan area, June 18th or 19th, we have a couple of events coming up. Go to my website, findingsomethingreal.com, and click on events. Follow us on social media for updates. We're so thankful that you're listening. Until next time.